Welcome to the About podcast. Here we explore your financial health in simple and easy to understand ways.
Well, welcome everybody to the About podcast. My name is Jeremy Scott. I am one of the hosts here, but not the only host because I am here with my good friend and co-host Roy Hucke. Roy, how you doing?
I'm awesome.
Nice.
You know, this has been a really nice winter around here, so.
What winter?
I know.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Don't tell anybody.
Right.
They might move here.
Yes. At the time of filming, the Winter Olympics are on, and there's all those athletes from Colorado, and I'm like, they had to go all the way to like Italy to find some snow. Like, I don't know how they're gonna practice when they get home.
Yeah. Well, you played in some snow last week, right?
I did.
Fake snow?
Fake snow. 60 degrees, fake snow. It's a crazy world we live in.
That's crazy.
I know.
Anyway, so awesome. Thank you for asking.
Yes. Well, we have a fun and uplifting topic today, kind of, but not really. We are actually going to do a rare part two.
Part two.
We recorded a wonderful podcast about a couple months ago about end of retirement planning. And this is part two of that because we left some things on the table that we needed to talk about. Roy, what was that?
Well, here's the scope, right?
Yes.
So we had part one was really talking about the after death stuff.
Right.
End of retirement. Ha. Try to make it fun, right?
Yeah, try to make it fun.
It's not a fun thing to talk about.
And we had a great guest, Chad Young of Young's Funeral Services, who talked a lot about his part of that equation and what happens and how you prepare for those sorts of things. But there's other things that we need to be thinking about and preparing for.
So today's really about the financial perspective of that.
Which makes sense on our financial wellness podcast.
And then we're going to have almost a part three.
Oh, goodness.
We have a guest coming up here in a few episodes down the road here.
Yes.
I don't exactly remember the date, but it's going to be, about this stuff, and it's more than just funerals and it's more than just finances.
Right.
So that's going to be a fun conversation too.
Right.
But so stay tuned for that, everybody. That will be coming down the road.
Yeah. But today we're in Roy's wheelhouse.
That's right. So really we're going to focus on two things.
Okay.
You have before death, before the end of retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have after death, after the end of retirement.
After the end of retirement.
Right? So I really wanted to kind of just paint the picture of before you pass away, you can do some things. Mm-hmm. You should do something for yourself and you should do something for others and people that you love. Mm-hmm. And that's what it really comes down to before the end of retirement. And what I mean by that specifically is you can make decisions to make your life and wishes known prior to you being in a situation where you can't make decisions, but you're not dead.
Right.
And you can make things easier for the people who are going to have to step in for you as part of that process.
Right.
Okay.
And that's a big one because I have encountered this even in my work when you're talking to people. People almost always want to honor what they think the wishes of their departed loved one is, but they don't always know. And then it becomes this like, well, I thought maybe they said this. Well, I thought maybe they said that. And I'm like, it's so much easier if it's all just written down.
That's right. So making your wishes known is a big part of this. So, right. So what can I do to help myself while I'm still alive? Mm-hmm. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. And what can I do to prepare for someone I love if I'm incapacitated? Because the reality is if you don't do anything, for instance, Jeremy, if something happens in your life, and you need someone to make decisions for you, you would potentially want your spouse to make those decisions, right?
That would be my goal, yes.
But for her to make those decisions, what does she need? The legal authority.
Right.
So you guys have done some planning. You've talked about that in the past where you guys got those documents in place.
We do.
So that's what I mean by helping someone you love.
Right.
Because if those documents aren't in place, then you have to go and figure out, okay, now what do I have to do to get the authority? Right. And there's a lot of hoop jumping to do that, and you're already dealing with someone who you love that's ill.
Right, because it only matters if there's a reason for it to matter, at which point something happened.
That's right.
Something happened to me. I'm not capable for whatever reason. So there's already all the stuff that goes along with that, the stress and the anxiety and the possibly grief that goes along with that. And then on top of that, you're like, oh, by the way, do you have the magic piece of paper that says you're allowed to make this choice? And they're like, oh, well, it's helpful if that exists.
And I'm talking to all you men out there right now that if you think you're just going to go out there and, take care of business, if that happens to you, you're not.
No.
Because you can't. You're not capable. And let's just be honest. We all know that you're joking when you say that, but it's something a lot of men kind of avoid.
Yeah.
We're probably the worst at this. So you have to have this conversation prior to something happening. It's not a fun conversation to have. It's uncomfortable. You just want to ignore it and avoid it.
Right.
But I'm encouraging you to approach this in a way where you want to make decisions for yourself while you're alive, help your loved ones know what your wishes are, and then also give them the power and control to be able to do that. So what does that actually mean?
What does that actually mean?
Well, I'm talking high level here, everybody.
Yeah.
We can obviously get in the weeds on any of this, but understand what's the plan going to be in the event that you can't take care of yourself any longer.
Okay.
And I'm not just talking physically,
right?
It could also be who's going to step in and financially take over for you. And I have this happen for a lot of my clients where I'll have children or someone that's important to them in their life step in to help them in situations where like, I'm not really trusting myself anymore, Roy.
Right.
And sometimes I actually encourage those conversations because I'll see it probably in them before they do, because just think, you and me, we're slipping. We don't want to acknowledge that. Right. So it's really hard to see it in yourself, but you can see it in others. And you know exactly what I'm talking about as a pastor, right?
I do. And honestly, you have the kind of conversations, with folks on a regular basis who are kind of in the weeds, in the details, and you can tell people are tracking or they're not. And like whether they have a handle on their financial details or if they don't. And when they start not, then that's, okay.
Yep. So I've had this a few times, encourage family to get involved. And a lot of times when I do that, it's well received because of the way that I approach it. I'm not telling them like, hey, you're a little short here of all the ball bearings, right? So when you approach it a specific way, they can hear it. And because I'm not a child, I'm not a family member, I'm not even a friend. I mean, I'm friends with a lot of my clients, by the way, but I'm not that person that's that close to them that they're going to lash out at me.
Right.
So sometimes for whatever reason, they'll receive it from me a little bit easier than they will from a loved one.
Yeah.
So I've had to bring that in a few different times. So what does that actually mean? Understand what you need to do for your plan for your ongoing care, essentially, right? So what's your wishes? If you're in a situation where you're not able to make your decisions, do you have support system currently where you live?
Right.
Do you have the ability to potentially stay in your home if you want to stay in your home? Or if you don't have loved ones nearby or available to you, even I've had some clients have their even children predeceased them, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah.
So, what do you do in those situations? But thinking through that is the important part of that is like, well, I'd like to stay in my home as long as I can, but if I can't, here's what we're going to do. And here's the plan to do that. Yeah.
There's a lot of places where like home health care isn't available.
That's right.
People live in rural places or, whatever.
Well, and honestly, there's so many boomers that are getting to the point of their life where they're starting to need these services.
Yes.
That there's not as many people out there to do the servicing as you might think. Right? We're in a very populated area, and you would think that those services would be readily available. And I have a client actually that works in this industry, and they're growing like leaps and bounds, and they're working like dogs, but they cannot keep up with demand right now.
Yeah.
So anyways, those are just things to think through. So what's the plan? So first, it's financially.
Absolutely.
Right? What can we actually afford? If you have the gumption, which a lot of people don't, because it's just hard to see your future in one of these facilities, right? But you can go tour some facilities.
Yeah.
We actually had a really good podcast called the Senior Care Authority. I don't remember the title of the podcast.
No, I don't remember, but it was a good one.
It was a good one, but it talks about like what are your needs versus what facilities could provide those services for your specific needs. So there's actually really good resources out there to help identify the right places for you. And it depends. Like, for instance, what I mean by that, everybody, is if you need insulin and you can give it to yourself, that's way different than if you need someone else to give it to you. Because that's a level of nursing care that's a line. It's a line that you're crossing. So you have to have more advanced nursing care to get someone else to administer insulin for you.
Right.
So those are the kinds of things I'm talking about.
I think if touring and things like that is really important. I was actually doing a pastoral visit recently to somebody who's been in a assisted living place for, a long time, like 10 years. And she talked about the fact that she had toured it beforehand. I think maybe even when it was being built. And so when it came time to make that transition, it was an easier transition because of somewhere that she'd been before, and she's like, okay, now's the time. So, I think It's nothing to be embarrassed of. I mean, hopefully we all live long enough to need a place like that.
Well, and it's interesting, man, because when you say embarrassing, is it more embarrassing to proactively educate and understand your options than to be in your home and need help and not have the help you need, and you're found in a very embarrassing situation?
Yeah.
I mean, that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And the whole point of this is that I want people to be able to age with dignity.
Right.
And you can. But you got to do some of the legwork.
You do.
That's the hard part.
And it does come. I mean, there's various levels of care. There's various quality of places in care, and unfortunately, a lot of times the quality comes down to how much you can afford.
That's right.
So back to the financial part of this whole thing. That's going to be a big determining factor of the level. I mean, most every place is going to be, they're going to take care of you, and you're going to be okay. But if you want some of the nicer amenities, or you want some of the the fancier facilities, those cost a little bit more. And if you're planned ahead, it's probably within reach. Those kind of places are probably more in reach for people than they know if they're planning ahead.
Yep. And I mean, not every place is the same, right? Like, I recently had a situation where someone went into a facility for some rehab. They didn't need to be in there full time.
Yeah.
For the rest of their life kind of situation, but they need some rehab. First place, not very good.
Yeah.
And you only moved them to a second place, much better. They're actually making much better progress. They're getting healthier, getting stronger, right? Those kinds of things are real, unfortunately. So you got to be really engaged with that. So the concept of allowing your mind to actually say, I'm willing to entertain going and looking at this stuff, also comes down to what can we afford?
Right.
So that's the money part of it. And, when I look at people's situations, it's what kind of income do we have coming in? Social Security, para, pensions. Are we working part-time? Do we need to consider that money's not going to be available if something happens to you, right? So we have to look at the full picture and really have a scope of it. And then what kind of retirement assets do we have available to maybe help offset costs? Mm-hmm. And what's the number we can actually realistically spend without running out of money?
Right.
And if you go into that facility, we can then potentially sell your home if you still have a home that you own. And that's part of the conversation, right? But these are all big, big topics.
Yeah, those are big.
And talking through those in advance, when you don't need it, is much easier than trying to get that conversation done when you need it.
Right.
And you may not be fully part of that conversation at that point either.
Right.
So,
well, that's the thing. I mean, eventually the conversation is going to happen. And the question is, how much of a part of it are you going to be?
That's right.
About the conversation about where you go and who's going to take care of you. Because, I mean, and God bless, I mean, hopefully you've got good family or like loves you and cares about you. Hopefully most people do. And they're going to do their best. But everybody would be happier, including those loved ones, if they had a decent idea of what they really understood your wants and desires were.
Yep. And looking at that, understanding if we don't have enough assets, which happens, that's a reality for some people. Is Medicaid a part of that? Right. We had a really good podcast about Medicaid, if you remember, as well, with Jennifer Hansen, and talking through what does it take to qualify and what's the process? How does this work? You can check that podcast out, everybody, if you're interested in that. And
there are people out there who will help and consult with you to navigate all of that.
You should use them because it's a lot.
Yeah.
And then including your decision makers and understanding your wishes is kind of the third piece of this. After you kind of do the higher level pieces, who is it in your life that's going to be part of this decision making?
Right.
If you have multiple children, is there a hierarchy within your children who are going to have the authority, legally speaking? Mm-hmm. Is it going to be a group approach?
Right.
I think it's much easier to have this conversation as a group, but then know that if something does happen, that there's the hierarchy, legally speaking, that you're going to go through. And a lot of times you don't do groups for the hierarchy of legal purposes because let's say if there's three of them and they're all on it equally, then they don't agree.
Right.
Then what happens?
Nothing good.
Nothing happens.
Right. Nothing.
Right. So you need one person to be able to make the decision.
Right. And that might not be age order.
That's right.
There may be a reason that the oldest child is not the one that's able or capable or, willing or whatever. But those defaults don't always hold up.
Which drives me to the next piece of this. Thank you, Jeremiah, for that bridge, is what are you doing for others? Mm-hmm. And that's what we're talking about with these decision makers, legally speaking. Okay, so do you have the legal documents in place for the decision making needed in the event that you're not dead, but you're not able to make decisions for yourself?
Right.
So what am I talking about, everybody? I'm talking about a financial power of attorney. I'm talking about a medical power of attorney. You can also have a living will that doesn't necessarily have any teeth to it like a medical power of attorney, but it does have the wishes, if you're not deceased, that you want to occur. So those are actual legal documents, right? So typically when you do a will, you have a living will as part of that, and you have your power of attorney medically and power of attorney financially. So everybody, if you don't have those documents in place, you really need to consider doing that.
Yes.
There's a lot of great resources out there too that I can direct people to if you're trying to keep costs down.
Right.
But if you have a more complex situation, it's worth the money to potentially pay an attorney.
Right.
And in Colorado, honestly, it's really expensive here. But it's Colorado.
Right.
Everything's expensive here.
Yeah. Well.
So, but it comes down to is, one, do you want to be legally protected? And then two, do you want, your wishes to actually play out the way you want your wishes to play out? I recently had a client pass away, got multiple children all over the place. His wishes are being filled out because he had a really good plan.
Oh, good.
Right. So that's the actual execution that you want to see upon the end of retirement.
End of retirement.
On the other side.
Yep.
So anyway, so we want to have that. And another thing you can do for others, and this is the part one.
Yes.
End of retirement part one with Chad is funeral planning.
Yes.
And I'm not necessarily talking about prepaid planning for funeral services. I'm talking about, what do you want?
Right.
Do you want to be cremated? Do you want a funeral? Do you want a specific outfit? Do you want music?
Right.
Like, what are your wishes? And again, nobody wants to do this. Let's be quite honest.
Right.
But you're not doing it for you. You're doing it for your loved ones that have to make these decisions when you're not here.
Right.
And it's really hard to do.
It is.
And you sit with people in rooms and do it.
Yeah.
And so does Chad.
Yeah, it is a lot easier if they have like that. Sometimes it's like there's this piece of paper tucked into grandma's Bible, that's got these are my favorite hymns, these are my favorite scriptures, this is what I want. And it is a real gift for people, because otherwise they're trying to because honestly, planning a funeral is kind of a creative act as far as like what do we want to include and all this kind of stuff. And if you've just lost somebody, that's a hard time to do it. And so I have found that most people, like, we have a sheet that's like, well, here's kind of the default, and then we can do whatever you want. And almost everybody's like, yeah, we'll just
walk me through it.
We'll just do this.
Yep.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Defaults are defaults for a reason. But yeah, do a little bit of just write it down. And don't say, I guess we're doing a lot of talking to the camera in this podcast. If you're listening to the audio, you're not getting the impact of
not getting the impact of my stare right now.
It's my stare. Do not say, I don't want a funeral. The funeral isn't for you.
That's true.
But your loved ones will want to gather and celebrate and remember your life. And they'd like to know they're doing it in a way that you would appreciate. So throw them a bone.
Honors you and allows them closure.
Yes.
That's the important piece.
Exactly. All right.
So
shout out part one. Go listen to that one.
Go check it out, everybody. So that's kind of if you're not deceased, some of the things you need to think through.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as that. And obviously, everybody's situation is different, and you go in way deeper when I go with my clients and talk through this stuff. But some people aren't willing to.
Yes.
And so I don't go that deep with some folks, but some people are, and we do. Oh, and by the way, for that situation with the multiple kids and all that stuff, the only issue or disagreement space largely was around the planning of the service.
Oh,
interestingly enough, right?
Yeah.
We got all the other stuff done properly, but
I
don't necessarily do it. But I'm actually going to start incorporating that. I'm actually creating a document to help people with some of those decisions prior to as well, that they can tuck into their estate planning documents.
Right. I love it.
Yeah. All right. So then that's the prior to death. Right. And now we have a death.
Right.
What is going to happen? Well, there's a few things that we need to understand.
Right.
So there's really primarily, there's actually 4 ways. I didn't put the 4th way on here, but I should do that, Jeremy. So I'm going to add it.
We're ad-libbing.
You can die intestate, which means no will.
Right.
And we talked about this on this podcast before, but what that ultimately means, everybody, is that you follow Colorado law.
Right.
Now, by the way, Colorado law is quite good.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a will, it will get it to the next generation. Now, if you want it to go to person X and your next of kin is person Y, well, then you need to do some planning, because it's going to person Y through Colorado law, if that makes sense, if they're your next of kin.
Well, I think in our estate planning episode, we talked about this. Like, if you don't have a plan, the state has a plan for you. No matter what state you live in, they have a plan. Some of them are better than others.
That's right.
Colorado's is pretty good, but they're not all.
Yep. All right. So that's really option one.
Yep.
Do nothing.
Do nothing.
And you'll follow the Colorado law. Option number two is we have a probate through a will. Mm-hmm. The will you created, your wishes are known within the will. There's a few pros and cons to this, right? One, it's the cheapest option in regards to setting it up.
Right.
Not necessarily always the cheapest when you execute, but so that's the legal process for debtors to make claims against your estate. That's really what a probate's all about.
Right.
It's a public process. Mm-hmm. So you owe debt somewhere, they can make a claim against your estate so it can get paid before the money gets dispersed to heirs, if you will. It's also the legal process that moves an asset from your name, the deceased, to the next person or entity.
Right. Which can be a pain in the rear.
It really can be.
Yeah.
And then I already mentioned this, but it's also public, right? So people can know what's going on and what's passing. And there's actually people that are out there that are looking at this information and they suddenly send you marketing material because they know you received money from somebody.
Right.
That's a real thing.
Right. I think we talked about this in our celebrity estate planning. That's one of the things, like, why do we know these things? Because it's a public process. Because, if you are a debtor, if somebody owes you some money, I think apparently you have the right to know that they died.
That's right. The other way, and this is by the way, it can be a combination of these things too. It doesn't have to be all or none, but there's a beneficiary designation process you can do in Colorado. I can't say this for certainty, but almost every asset that you can own that's a hard asset, you can put a beneficiary designation on.
Oh, okay.
Your car, your home, financial accounts, retirement accounts, those can all have beneficiary designations on them, and those are usually people's largest assets. Mm-hmm. And if you do the beneficiary designation process, it is even less expensive than a will. Now, the will covers things that you need to have, and I encourage people to have a will. But if you don't have one, beneficiaries are a great way to at least help get assets from one generation to the next because you name them. It does not go through probate, so we're doing a beneficiary designated process. Mm-hmm. You can usually name a primary, and you can name contingents, and there's even tertiary situations where you can add a third level, if that makes sense, to it. So that's kind of a nice way to do it. And most everybody does that on their IRA or their 401k, and those kinds of things already. Life insurance typically has a beneficiary designation on it, right? Mm-hmm. So those are pieces of the puzzle that kind of automatically get that. But there's other things you can do too. And a lot of people don't realize you can do it on your home through a beneficiary deed process.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So again, why would you consider that? It avoids probate. It's private. It's pretty simple, meaning all they do is take the death certificate to the institution. The institution sees that you're deceased. They see that the beneficiaries say X, Y, and Z. They open accounts for X, Y, and Z, and they move the money over. Okay. So it's a very quick process, relatively speaking, as well. Mm-hmm. The hardest part of the whole process is getting the death certificate. It seems like it takes a long time to get that typically.
It can take a while.
Yeah. So that's the beneficiary designated process.
All right.
And then I guess this is technically the fourth option here now.
We're in the fourth one.
This.
The big one.
The trust.
The trust.
Now, trust.
That's for rich people, Roy.
Trust is a word that is thrown around ridiculously. And, that's in trust, where I have a trust. Well, what does it mean? There's lots of different types of trusts. Right. All right. But you can put assets into a trust. They typically call it a living trust. Okay. You title all your assets into that trust except for retirement accounts because you can't. You can't title it in the name. It has to stay with your Social Security number as an individual. Oh, that's the way the IRS views it. Okay. So if you use a trust, you probably are going to use a combination of trust and beneficiary if you have retirement accounts. Mm-hmm. But that way you have the ability to design it the way that you want. There's many, 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 many different types of trusts and the designs and the wishes and all that stuff that's built into them. It also avoids probate. Okay. It's private, and it could potentially give you control beyond the grave. Oh. Now, let's just talk about a few high-level examples of somebody who would want to consider a trust to even know if I should even look at that. If control's not the thing you want, because that's obviously number one. If you want control beyond the grave, you get a trust,
Right.
because you have
That's
some
the only way
control
you can do
beyond
it.
the grave.
Right. Wasn't it Diana Ross's that we talked about that, like, before they inherited, my kids have to get a business degree?
I believe it was.
Or somebody like that. Yeah.
Yep. So control beyond the grave, that's number one. But if you have certain situations, for instance, if you have assets in multiple states, let's say you have a rental home in a different state, your primary home's in a state, and I don't know, you inherited something, a lumber, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but
lumber mill?
Yeah,
there you go.
land that you harvest for wood.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah,
it. That's
a
what I'm trying to
forest.
say here. Yeah, forest, yes. But those are all in different states. Well, if you pass away and you don't do anything, then each of those states has a probate. Even if you have a will, you have a probate.
Right.
Not all states technically, and I don't know this for certain, so keep this in mind, everybody. But I know Colorado has beneficiaries, and you can put that on land and homes. Even oil royalties and things like that, mineral rights, water, all that stuff.
Ooh.
I don't know if all states do that.
Okay.
So, you just have to know the state you're in, if you have assets in those states. But you're going to have probates in 3 different states if you do nothing.
Right.
And that's a lot of work for somebody.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
Who's doing that work? Right? Somebody that loves you.
Right.
Or has a financial interest.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to.
And usually what it's going to be typically, most people, it's going to be their kids who are also like grieving. Right. Like, not only do I have to deal with the fact that I lost somebody, and now I have to deal with all this other stuff. And on one hand, if you have assets like that, then that's nice. I mean, but we can make this easier.
Yep. So that's another high level situation where you would probably want to consider a trust. And this is not advice, everybody. This is look at your situation, get advice to see if it makes sense for you.
Is there a threshold? Because I made that joke at the beginning that trusts are for rich people, but I mean, I think I kind of had that view of it. They're like, I'm never going to have enough like complexity, or I'm never going to have enough money to make it worthwhile to have a trust. Why would I do that? Is there like, do you kind of have like a rule of thumb or like a threshold where you're just like, if you get to this point, so property in multiple states, that's something that might trigger that, just to keep things, simple, to simplify things.
Well, the biggest one that actually answers your question is, if I have multiple situations like this, unfortunately, and it's more prevalent today probably than it was, 25 years ago. But if you have a child or an heir that has a substance abuse issue, you can't leave them money outright. You need the control beyond the grave to protect them from themselves. Right. That's a perfect example of, I don't really care how much money it is necessarily. We just need to make sure they don't get that money immediately and then spend it all on the habit that they have, unfortunately. Right. Or we can say that this money is going towards their rehab. Right. Things like that. So it depends is the answer. Right. It really depends on the situation. It depends on what their desires are. My goal on all this stuff is always to educate and let them make the decision.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I actually do caution people against attorneys to a point. And what I mean by that is this. I have worked with a lot of attorneys. There's a lot of great ones. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of, like any profession, some ones that maybe get a little comfortable in the lane they're in. And what I mean by that is, like, everybody needs a trust. Or nobody needs a trust.
Right.
Right? They kind of have the thing that they do, and that's how they do everybody. Mm-hmm. And that's not what I actually try to get my clients to work with someone like that. I want them to be educated, and I want them to take the approach that makes sense for them. Right. I don't want the attorney to make more money on a trust, so they're going to get a trust. Right. Or they're like, I don't want to deal with all the work that a trust takes, and I can just push a button, print out a will and power of attorney, and Right. So I want to make sure that they're getting educated. I want to make sure that it's the best thing for them based off of what their situation is, their desires, their needs, and all that good stuff. So That's the approach I take.
Like it.
We kind of talked to this again, so we'll just recap them because I think I got out of order on my numbers. But number 1 is intestate. You do nothing. Number 2 is it's a probate through your will. Mm-hmm. Number 3 is beneficiary designated. Mm-hmm. And number 4 is a trust process.
And number 5 is the reality, which is probably a little bit of everything. A little bit of several.
You're probably going to have a combination, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you forget something, a lot of wills exist. If you have a trust, for example, a lot of wills have provisions in them that it's called a pour-over provision. Meaning, let's say that you're in the middle of doing some financial transaction and you die.
Right.
Well, and it's outside of the trust at that point in time for whatever reason, right? Mm-hmm. then your will still, it has to go through probate, but it'll still get it back into that trust.
Gotcha.
For the protection that you wanted to create, especially in that child situation of substance abuse,
Right.
Stuff like that. So that's really important to consider. But that's the
and there's a hierarchy in these things too, because you may say, I think it is, beneficiaries, designated beneficiaries, kind of above all.
That's actually a great point. Yes.
Versus like I might say one thing in my will, but if my beneficiaries are listed differently, then I remember just having gone through this process with you, that the beneficiary designation is the thing that, ultimately tends to win out.
Yep. And I unfortunately have this situation going on right now where I did have a client pass away, and they had all their wishes in a trust and all this stuff kind of really written out recent, and getting things in order the way they really wanted things to be executed.
Mm-hmm.
However, we found out after the fact that there was a retirement account that had beneficiary designations that were not their wishes.
Oh.
But what supersedes is the beneficiary designation.
Right.
Now, you can contest these things, and there's legal processes for these things, but that's what actually happens, right? So that creates messy. And that's where our celebrity episode comes in. That's where they have to work things out in the courts in the public domain.
Yeah, but then but that's the thing. It's courts and it's lawyers, and it's,
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it.
Okay.
All right. So
in our episode about death, we get to talk about our other favorite topic, taxes.
Taxes and death are the two certain things in life.
I know.
Okay. So this is just, again, a high level. When you look at your assets, if you do nothing, which you can do, it's like, that's somebody else's problem. Okay. But where do you want your money to go? Because either it's going to go to someone or something you care about in an efficient way as possible.
Right.
Or if you do nothing, then you're going to follow the rules at hand with wherever you live.
Right.
And there could be potential consequences to that maybe the government gets more than they should get if you don't do any proper planning.
Right.
Right. So what do you want to happen? And some people are like, well, I like the government. I want them to have all my money. I've never heard that ever, by the way.
Somebody
so
is a big fan.
Right. So most people would like to have their money go where they wish it to go. It's their hard-earned money.
Right.
Right. They would like to maybe have some thought into that. So let's just talk about the taxation that occurs, because this is really what probably drives people's decision making around this. Right. So there's the process where you leave an asset and it's income taxable. Okay. So let's be clear here. There's capital gains, there's income tax.
Right.
And there's no tax.
That's my favorite.
Okay. We like the no tax. So if it's income tax, what that means, Jeremy, is if somebody leaves you an asset and it has a tax impact that has an income tax on it, and it's $100,000, you just had $100,000 added to your income. So wherever you filed your taxes for the previous year, add $100,000 to it, and where does that put you?
Oh,
Put you in a higher tax bracket potentially.
Probably, yep.
So this is what I mean by if you do nothing, it could potentially create a taxable event where the government gets maybe more than they deserve.
Gotcha.
And by the way, it's designed like that on purpose. So,
well, the government is the one who wrote the rules.
That's right.
And believe it or not,
it's to their advantage.
The rules are to their advantage.
So we want to maybe have a little bit more control over that, right? So what is income taxable? Let's start there. If you leave an IRA, an individual retirement account, to somebody that is a non-spouse.
Oh.
Okay. Let's just start here, actually. If you leave it to a spouse, it's also income taxable to the spouse, but they can take it out over their lifetime.
Okay.
If you leave it to a non-spouse, it's income taxable to them as well.
Right.
But they have to take it out within 10 years.
Oh, yeah. We talked about this at one point. I can watch episode.
So let's say in this situation that we have the $100,000 that's given to you, Jeremy, and it's through an IRA and you have 10 years to take it out.
Even if I'm nowhere near retirement age.
That's right.
Yep.
Even if you're nowhere near retirement age, which is also by design because most people are going to inherit these. Their non-spouses are going to be people in their higher earning years.
Right.
So the government gets more tax on it.
Right. Because I'm probably already in my 40s or 50s.
That's right.
I'm in my...
You're at your career arc of highest income you've had in your lifetime, probably.
Probably.
But they're going to take that. Let's say we did 1/10, $10,000 is now added to your income. You're in the highest bracket you've probably been in your lifetime, and it's going to pay taxes on the $10,000 at that highest tax rate.
Gotcha.
Right? By design. So that's another situation though where it's income taxable. 401ks follow the same rules.
Okay.
Okay. Annuities are one that really catch people. Annuities aren't as simple as saying that it's all taxable or it's not taxable. It depends.
Oh.
For instance, let's just say that the deceased had an annuity worth $100,000.
Okay.
But they put $50,000 of their own money in it. The $50,000 is not income taxable. But the $50,000 of growth, right? They put in 50, it's now worth 100. They have a $50,000 growth.
Okay.
That is income taxable.
Interesting.
So that is where people get confused. And that's also where people like annuities bad. Annuities are just a tool like anything else. They have purposes.
I just read a note. We need an episode on annuities because I don't really understand them.
Okay. Funny enough, I had a conversation with someone yesterday that had the same thing. I don't get them.
Yeah.
There's just lots of them and lots of kinds.
Yeah.
And if it's a what we call non-qualified annuity, meaning it's a non-retirement asset, because we already know retirement assets like IRAs and 401ks get income taxable, no matter what they're in. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's an annuity or not. But annuities could be in 401ks and IRAs, but they could also be outside of.
Right.
And that's where that 50,000 to 100,000, the gap, all that stuff is where it becomes taxable. And that's where people get confused.
Gotcha.
So that is really the biggest place where you have income tax ramifications. And a lot of people, if they are, depending on the size of their accounts and things like that, if they're charitably inclined and things like that, if you leave those assets to nonprofits, like churches,
Bring it on.
then the church as a nonprofit does not have to pay income tax on that.
Yes, because we don't pay income tax on anything.
So a lot of people will just be strategic with that. Like, hey, instead of just saying, I want 1/10 of my estate to go to this nonprofit, this church, whatever it is, you be more strategic and say, okay, of my estate, I'm going to actually have allocation of X amount of dollars from my retirement accounts to go to the nonprofit, because then they don't take taxes. And then my heirs, they keep the assets that are more tax efficient for them.
Right.
So at the end of the day, something you love, being a charity, gets more money, and your family, who you love, gets more money.
Right.
And the government, who you don't love, doesn't get as much, right? But it's completely within the legal bounds that you have.
Right.
So do it that way.
I love it when you call that efficiency, because the engineer part of my brain loves efficiency anyway. But that's really what it's about. It's like we're not playing games. We're not do anything like that. It's just how do we do what you want to do as efficiently as possible, which is why we need to know what you want to do. And then you can go, okay, well, there's different paths to getting that done.
That's right. Now, again, remember, everybody, we're talking about after you pass away.
Yeah, it's after you pass.
So the next really situation you have is tax-free assets.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is any asset you own that's like a hard asset, like land, a business, stock, those, what's that?
Boat.
Yeah, boats, but those are depreciating assets. So we should probably talk to your financial advisor before you buy one.
Okay, yeah, don't. Or just don't.
Anyway, so they all get a step up in basis. So what I mean by that is this. In that annuity example, I said you put in 50 and it's worth 100.
Right.
The growth of 50 is income taxable. If it's not using an annuity and you just invested in some Pepsi stock,
right,
you put in 50, it's worth 100. At death, you get a step up in cost basis. So the cost basis was 50 that you originally put in.
Mm-hmm.
Because you died, at your date of death, you get a step up in cost basis to the value at date of death. So now your heirs don't have to pay the taxable gain on the $50,000 of growth.
Oh.
So that's tax-free to them.
Okay.
And that's also an area where people get really confused.
Yes.
Because they think, well, they're going to tax me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an asset that's not taxable because of step up in cost basis. Oh. Now, if you pass away, it's worth 100, and by the time it gets divvied up, it's worth 125. Well, yeah, the growth from the date of death to the day that it was split is taxable.
Right.
Because it goes to the heir, whomever that is, or whatever that is.
That makes sense.
So I think people get confused around that. So that's important to understand, is the step up in cost basis is a real thing. So depending on how we're structuring your assets, sometimes a lot of clients are like, well, we're not going to sell this asset over here because we know at death it's going to step up in cost basis. So we're not going to use that. We're going to use this asset over here that's a little bit more, strategic and efficient for us to get to it without paying the tax man too much money.
Gotcha.
Another one that's tax-free typically is life insurance. So
Yes.
life insurance death benefit. Now I want to be clear. I'm talking about life insurance. On annuities, this is where annuities also get a bad rap, rightly so. A lot of annuities will say death benefit on them.
Right.
That death benefit is not life insurance.
Okay. It's just
that death benefit can be taxable by the design of the annuity, which we talked about already.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so life insurance, as long as your estate is below the lifetime exemption amount, which I think is around 13 million. I can't remember in 2016 where we're
It's
at.
millions.
It's
basically.
a lot. But here's the thing, Jeremy, if you had a $13 million estate and you have $1 million life insurance policy that pays into your estate upon your death, you now have $14 million in your estate,
Ooh,
right? That life insurance becomes taxable.
Okay.
Not income taxable, estate taxable.
Oh my
Which
gosh.
they take 40% right now. So in that situation, they would take $400,000
Oh boy.
unless we design it properly.
Right.
So there's ways to do that. But that's where life insurance mostly is tax-free, but it can be taxable in certain situations.
Right. Okay.
And then Roth assets, Roth 401k, Roth IRAs, they're tax-free to the heirs.
Okay.
So typically you don't want to leave those assets to nonprofits.
Right. Because the Roth, you paid the taxes before you
right.
paid it in.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the difference. Okay.
So those are the highest level things. We can always get in the weeds with lots of other stuff, little things here and there.
Well,
but those are things I really get people to bring up over and over. So
Yeah. Future episodes, man. Future episodes.
that's right.
There you go. There you go.
So for the end of retirement planning,
Yes.
right? We have the pre and the post death. And it's really doing things to efficiently get things to the next generation and efficiently execute in a way where emotions are already high. You've already had the conversations and done the planning so they know what your wishes are if you're not deceased.
Right.
So that at the end of the day, your wishes are followed.
Right. Well, and I think people need to understand, like, this sounds, it might sound complicated. It might sound like, there's a lot going on here, and there is. And if you're working with the right person, this is something that can get put together and dealt with, over the matter of a few days, right? I mean, unless you have something super complicated, I want 14 trusts for 10 different people and all that kind of stuff, and that's going to take a little longer. But most of the stuff, even just getting the basics where you've got your powers of attorneys and all that kind of stuff set, like that was an afternoon conversation and a follow up and some signing some documents and all that kind of stuff. And now I get to walk around with the peace of mind knowing that that's done.
That's right.
Right. So, I mean, it's
For now.
for now. Tell something changes.
Just remember, everybody, the first time you do an estate plan is probably not the last time you do an estate plan, just because things change in your lifetime.
They do. But I wonder sometimes if people don't overestimate like how much time and energy this is going to take. If you've already got a good handle on your financial assets, especially if you're already working with somebody, right? This isn't one of those things that's going to take you months and months and months and months to figure out. If you don't choose not to do it, you might be causing months and months of work for your heirs after you're gone.
That's right.
Right. So it's almost like an investment, right? I'm going to spend a little bit of time now. I'm going to plan. I'm going to make sure I know what's going on. We're going to make sure we do it as efficiently as possible. I'm going to work with somebody who knows what they're doing. I'm going to give a couple afternoons of work to this, and I'm going to save myself and my heirs potentially days, if not more, work, time, and headache on the other end. And if you plan it, you can plan it when you want to, right? I mean, you can plan it like I'm going to do it on summer, right after I get on vacation. I'll be in a good mood, right? Versus trying to figure this out on the other side of a loss, where you're dealing with all the other things and the complicated emotions and the family dynamics and all that kind of stuff. So it is an investment in your heirs' future well-being, financially and mentally.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a big deal, and going through this is not easy. It's not intended to be.
No.
But you're going to be in a better situation because of it. And I have two things. Number one, I wanted to mention this too, because we're talking about examples of people need trusts. Substance abuse was what I used as an example. Another situation is disabilities.
Oh, yes.
Example of that is I do have clients that have a disabled son, and they need to make sure the assets are left in trust for his benefit, because if they leave it to him directly, then he loses his benefits that the government provides to him for his health insurance and those things. Right?
Interesting. Yeah.
So those assets can be held in trust. It's called it's a disability trust, but that's another example,
right?
That I wanted to mention. And shoot, I can't remember what the second thing I was going to say was.
Well, we'll catch it in End of Retirement Planning Part 3.
That's right. We probably will have more on this,
Yeah.
but it's a big deal, right? Like, these are decisions that make real impacts. And this is actually an area where I personally don't make money.
Right.
but I help people save the most money, right, by making healthy decisions that are important to them and have their money go where they want it to go. And it's really impactful, and I really enjoy this. But I know what the other one was like. For my clients, I typically, one of the issues that people don't do this is because they're like, I just don't know what to do. I'm gonna go talk to an attorney. They're gonna talk to me in ways I don't understand, and I don't do anything, or I just do what they tell me to do.
Right.
And is that really what I want? So what I typically try to do for my clients is go through a process of education, which is kind of what we did, by the way.
Yeah, we did. Good job.
But you knew what you wanted before you went to an attorney.
Yeah.
And that actually helped you make a decision based off of what attorney you were going to use even, right? So that's what I do for my clients. But not everybody can be my client. So I only have so much capacity. So that's why we do this podcast, to help people understand these things and try and get that education so they can go talk to an attorney and really get what they want and need, not what they're told to get. Yeah. So,
all right. Well, as always, wonderful information, Roy. Wonderful, wonderful. Help us make good decisions for ourselves and others. So, I like the feeling of knowing that when the time comes, I hope my kids and my stepkids and everybody are go, well, I appreciate that they took care of some of this stuff, right? And I have a family situation right now with someone who's has not done that, and it's not fun.
Yep.
And I don't want to be that person. So, and I think you're right. And I do think, not to stereotype, but I do think it's the guys that are a little bit more resistant to this.
They're not going to die. It's harder for us to look at our mortality for whatever reason.
I think so. But I also think the one thing that is a shared trait amongst most men is we don't want to be a burden.
Very
okay.
true.
So this is one of the ways that you can preemptively ease the burdens of the people you care about.
That's right.
Yeah, which is good. So, all right. Well, if you have questions about end of retirement, financial health, whatever it may be, we love it when you share those with us. Reach out and let us know. And of course, if this is interesting to you, it's probably interesting to somebody else. So please, like, subscribe, share this episode with other people. And of course, check out End of Retirement Part 1 if you haven't done that. All right. Well, thank you, Roy. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you, sir. As always, it's great.
Fantastic.
CWA is a Securities and Exchange Registered Investment Advisor. No content contained herein should be construed as an offer for investment advice or an offer for the purchase or sale of any security, insurance, or other investment product. Investments involve the risk of low loss, including loss of principal. Please consult with a qualified financial, tax, or legal professional before implementing any strategy presented here. Data presented here are obtained from believed reliable sources but cannot be guaranteed as to completeness or accuracy.